Naaman, the general, healed by faith, a testimony of humility and redemption. The greatness of a man marked by fragility. In the biblical narrative, few characters so clearly represent the tension between earthly power and human limitation as Naaman, described as a great man before his master, and valiant in battle in the book of 2 Kings. Naaman was the commander of the Syrian army, the rival power of Israel. Yet, behind the armor was a wound: leprosy. This story, recorded in 2 Kings 5, shows how pride, obedience, and faith converged to produce a miracle. Naaman's journey is not only one of physical healing, but also of spiritual transformation. This account remains a rich source of lessons for believers and Bible scholars around the world. Historical and political context. Syria, also known as Aram, was a powerful kingdom located north of Israel, frequently at war with the people of God. This hostile backdrop makes the miracle God performed in Naaman's life even more impactful. He was a foreigner, and more than that, a commander of enemy forces. Naaman was highly esteemed by his king, having led many military victories. The Bible declares, "By him the Lord had given victory to Syria." This suggests that, though Naaman was a Gentile, God was already working through him to fulfill his purposes. A surprisingly inclusive view for the Old Testament. The weight of leprosy, from power to vulnerability, despite his military success and national honor. Naaman suffered from leprosy, a disease that, in those days, was not only physically debilitating but also carried social and spiritual stigma. Leprosy could isolate a person from their community, limit social interactions, and erode a sense of identity. Mentioning the disease at the beginning of the story is crucial because it shows that even the most powerful are not immune to human frailty. Here, the biblical author draws a strong contrast between Naaman's prestige and his desperate condition. The disease placed him in a position of helplessness, a recurring theme in Scripture. The anonymous servant girl, the bridge between despair and hope. The turning point of the story begins with a surprising figure: a young Israelite girl taken captive during one of Syria's military raids. Serving Naaman's wife, she shows remarkable compassion by suggesting that her master seek a prophet in Samaria who could heal him. This anonymous girl, whose voice breaks the silence of oppression and pain, becomes an instrument of redemption. Her faith in the power of Israel's God compels her to intercede for a national enemy. This teaches that divine grace can manifest through the most unexpected people and in unlikely circumstances. The journey to Israel: gifts, expectations, and misunderstandings. When the king of Syria hears the servant's account, he sends Naaman to Israel with a letter to the king, along with silver, gold, and fine clothes. This gesture reveals that Naaman, though ill, still operated under a human logic of power and exchange. If I offer something valuable, I'll be rewarded. However, when the king of Israel receives the letter, he tears his clothes in despair. He fears this could be a diplomatic trap. The king's helplessness shows that healing does not come from earthly thrones, but from the heavenly one. It is at this point that the prophet Elisha intervenes, asking that Naaman be sent to him. Elisha, the man of God, refuses to meet the general in person, instead sending a simple message: "Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored." Pride confronted, simplicity offends. Naaman becomes enraged. He expected something grand, a mystical ceremony, a laying on of hands, something fitting his status. Instead, he receives a simple command to bathe 7 times in an Israelite river. His indignation is telling. Are not the rivers of Damascus better than all the waters of Israel? Here, the human heart is laid bare. Naaman wants to be healed, but on his own terms. He wants the miracle without shedding his pride. He wants redemption without humiliation. Elisha's command required not only a physical act but an internal attitude: brokenness, obedience as the door to the miracle. Naaman nearly misses his blessing due to pride. But his servants, again, secondary characters, wisely advise him. If the prophet had told you to do something difficult, would you not have done it? How much more then, when he tells you, "Wash and be cleansed"? Naaman listens, and by submitting, he dips 7 times in the Jordan River. On the 7th dip, his skin is restored like that of a child. The leprosy vanishes. But more than that, Naaman emerges from the Jordan, not just physically healed, but spiritually transformed. The confession of faith, a Gentile touched by grace. Immediately after his healing, Naaman returns to Elisha with an extraordinary confession: "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel." This is the conversion of a man who, though powerful in his own nation, now acknowledges God's sovereignty. He offers gifts to the prophet, who refuses them, underscoring that miracles cannot be bought. Naaman then asks for a portion of Israel's soil to take home, a symbol that, even living in a foreign land, he would worship the God of Israel. Naaman's sensitivity, loyalty, and conflict. Before leaving, Naaman makes a peculiar request, that the Lord pardon him when, by state duty, he must bow before the god Naaman, alongside his king. This detail shows the complexity of his new faith in a hostile environment. He does not want to abandon his civil role, but neither does he want to betray his newfound conviction. Elisha answers with a serene phrase, "Go in peace." This response suggests that God understands individual contexts and acts with mercy, even amid life's ambiguities. Gehazi's greed, a sad contrast. Naaman's story doesn't end with his departure, but with a striking contrast. Gehazi, Elisha's servant, secretly chases after Naaman and demands the gifts Elisha had refused. Upon returning, Gehazi tries to hide his actions. Elisha confronts him and declares that Naaman's leprosy would now cling to him and his descendants. This conclusion reinforces that Naaman's miracle was not a transaction, but an act of grace. Gehazi's greed taints his life and becomes a symbol of what happens when spirituality is twisted by personal gain. Eternal lessons from Naaman's story. Naaman's story, though brief, is one of the richest in the Bible. It touches on deep themes: the universality of grace. Naaman was a foreigner, yet a target of God's love. The importance of humility. Healing came not by force, but by submission. The power of obedience. Naaman was only healed when he followed the prophet's instructions. The impact of simple characters. Anonymous servants changed the fate of a general. The tension between faith and context. Even after conversion, Naaman had to balance faith and political duty. Naaman in the New Testament, an example quoted by Jesus. Naaman's story is so significant that Jesus mentions it in the Gospel of Luke, Luke 4:27. In a tense moment, Jesus says, "And there were many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha. Yet none of them was cleansed only Naaman the Syrian." This remark offended the Jewish listeners, who were upset by the idea that a Gentile was healed, while Israelites were not. It shows that, even in the Old Testament, God was already revealing his plan of universal salvation, not limited to one ethnicity, but available to anyone who believes. Conclusion. Naaman the warrior, who surrendered to the living God. Naaman is one of the Bible's most fascinating characters. His journey captures a profound spiritual truth. All of us are, in some way, powerful on the outside, and leprous on the inside. The healing we need is not just physical but spiritual. And true faith requires us to lay down our pride and plunge into the waters of obedience. Naaman teaches us that God works wherever there is willingness, even if it comes from unexpected places. He also reminds us that the true miracle happens when we bow to the divine will and then emerge restored, made new. If you found this inspiring, share this video with someone who needs to know Naaman's story. Click the bell icon, subscribe to the channel, and leave your like. We'll see you in the next video with more stories like this one.